And I'll be hosting this session for him. Just give us a couple of minutes till more people join, and then we'll start the session. Okay, we have about 250, 230 people now. We'll wait for a few more minutes. People are still joining in. People from all over the world. Everyone, please keep, during the session, I'll be taking the questions from the chat box on the right side. So keep posting all your questions and queries. We'll stop in the middle one time and then right at the end. And I'll be routing the questions to Dr. Sarkar. So keep sending your questions meanwhile. We'll try to answer as many as possible. Dr. Sarkar, as many of you might already know, is an academic director and academic director for data science and machine learning programs in Great Learning. He has quite an illustrious background. He has a Ph.D. from Stanford University and a teaching experience of over 28 years at prestigious colleges like MIT, Indian Institute of Science, and IIM Bangalore. Dr. Sarkar also has industry experience at organizations like GE and IBM. And today, as I mentioned, he'll be talking about AI for leaders from both a theoretical as well as a more industry point of view. Dr. Sarkar, without further ado, let's start the session. I think we have a lot of people now.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try sharing my screen. Let's see.
Yeah, it's visible.
So can you see my screen?
Yeah. It's visible now.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as the case may be in your part of the world. It's always a pleasure to be in these forums, and while I can't see you, I hope you are doing well. I hope you are safe where you are. If you are in isolation, welcome to the community. Many of us are. I'm here right now at home. My daughter is in the next room. And one of the opportunities that we have, even in these difficult times, is to come together on forums such as this, to talk about technology, to talk about opportunities, to talk about business and where technology might take business, to talk about data, to talk about different kinds of applications of data and related things, which is what mostly my career and my professional expertise has been about. But I also hope you're taking this opportunity to learn about whatever interests you. And irrespective of great learning, learning is always a place that we want to go to when the opportunity arises. And paradoxical as it may sound, this seems like a good opportunity to learn more about ourselves and about the world around us. That being said, what we'll talk about today is I want to talk about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has lots of connotations for lots of people. It may mean robots to you. It may mean something that Arnold Schwarzenegger started doing many years ago. It may mean neural networks to you. It may mean the new business buzzword to you. In which case, this is a session for you, because what we will be doing is we'll try to understand what artificial intelligence means for leadership, in particular business leadership. Leadership can be of various types. It could be political leadership. It could be leadership of community. Leadership is defined in many ways, including personal leadership. But leadership for me today, I'm going to think in terms of business leadership and what business leaders can do to advance their individual roles as far as also their business success. I'm also going to take the view that most of you are interested in business itself. And as it stands, some of you may be running businesses. Some of you may be intimately involved in business decisions. And the point is to be able to say, how does all this help in the business process? For those of you who are on this call and aren't necessarily in the business side of things, maybe this will give you some insight as to how the management community or the management of for-profit organizations and corporations are thinking in terms of where technology might take you next. Now, technology has been going in a number of places, and it's been at it for quite some time. Till about a few years ago, we were speaking in terms of business intelligence or BI. And business intelligence had a major role to play in business development and how businesses thought about using computers and data to do their work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with the flow. I'm going to begin with the flow of how businesses tend to think about things. In the middle, nothing really to do with AI or data or anything like that, but just normal businesses. Just think of a shop. Think of a bus service. Think of trains. Think of a restaurant. Think of whatever business that you might be or might be a customer of. And what this slide is that it's something like a workflow. There are many versions of this, many interpretations of how businesses work. This particular one owes a little bit of reference to a book called Applied Artificial Intelligence. It's a wonderful book that you might take an opportunity to look at. There's a lot of literature out there, a lot of very interesting books. Please take your time reading about this as well. In addition to, of course, participating in these sessions and going ahead with us in great learning. So just a very brief snapshot of how businesses might be doing this and do this. Number one, businesses operate by taking actions. A business action, an action of selling something, an action of buying something. And these actions are typically informed by a set of information and judgment. So for example, think that you are running a profit and loss, or you're the CEO of a small company or a large company. How do you take decisions? How does this work for you? One part of the decision-taking ability for any decision, be that annual strategy, be that approaching an individual customer, whatever be the objective, is essentially involving numbers. Numbers about markets, about sales, how much are you selling, what are your revenues, how much are things costing, what are the things that are going into labor, how much money have you borrowed, how much you're having to pay for it, any infrastructure that you're using, etc. Talk about revenue, sales, talk about your annual numbers, talk about your quarterly numbers, talk about meeting targets. Very often businesses operate by essentially passing targets from top to the bottom and then figuring out how those targets are met from bottom to the top, from the CEO to business units or to shop floors and then back up again. Accounting, for example, is done that way. When people keep their books, they keep it in terms of numbers. I'm talking about that kind of information, just the movement of money and resources in a typical business. The other thing that businesses also do is businesses use judgment. Judgments about strategy, about where the business is going, what it is trying to accomplish, what the competitive scenario is like, what other companies might be coming in, what other kinds of products might be coming in, what do their past experiences say about situations. Some situations, such as the situation that we are in now, don't necessarily involve any past experience. Some of us may have been through crises of this kind, maybe financial crises, say the dot-com bust of a couple of decades ago, etc. But they may have been nothing like this kind of a pandemic that's running through the world and shaking up businesses everywhere. So experiences of various kinds come together. Strategies of various kinds come together. Together with the numbers that a business generates, this leads to actions. Now, where does data and where does intelligence fit into all of this? Based on the information and the judgment of business leaders, businesses take actions. Those actions can also be informed by predictions. These predictions can be made by simple guesswork, by saying that I'm going to guess that so many customers are going to come in, or they can be based on data. They can be based on some kind of analysis that can be done. And this kind of analysis can be very straightforward statistical analysis, a trend chart, just an Excel spreadsheet showing you where your business is going. A statistical model may be built on it, which is a dashboard. We'll talk more about dashboards as we go along. Dashboards can be structured around this. But you're simply making a prediction, a guess as to where you things might be going. And based on that, you are informing your action as to what you want to do. Do you want to sell more? Do you want to reduce your prices? Do you want to go after cost? Do you want to have a new product coming into the market? Things of that sort. Do you want to hire more people? Do you want to let people go? Do you want to borrow more money? Do you want to use it in different ways? Now, these predictions can also come through more sophisticated mechanisms involving different kinds of inputs. Inputs that involve clever learning from the world around us. Information that is coming not just from this kind of statistical tables, but information that's coming from other kinds of feedback. Some of it may be associated with AI, artificial intelligence. Some of it may be associated with things like, for example, IoT or the Internet of Things, basically sensors that you have on machines that may tell you this is how machines are working. And that may inform what you think is going to happen in the future, or how your computer network is working. So various kinds of data and various kinds of models, from very simple statistical models to very sophisticated predictive machine learning models, may be used. So we'll talk a little bit about machine learning as we go into the next part of this talk. Now, what about the actions that the business might be taking? Does analytics, does business intelligence, does artificial intelligence have a role to play in that? Yes, actions can be anticipated, actions can be simulated, actions can be, shall we say, scenario analyzed. Often you'll see people coming up with scenarios. What is my best case scenario? For those of you who have gone to, for example, investors, they would ask you this: what is the best case scenario? What might happen? What is the upper side, the upside of the story? They may also ask for what is the downside of the story. And you as a leader would want to say, what would happen if things really go wrong? This kind of scenario analysis is also being done now as we see people are unable to forecast where this disease will go. And people are saying, what is the upper end of this? And what is the lower end of this? But in a typical business, you would say, what would happen if things fall my way and things do not fall my way? And you can do that with simulations. And those simulations can be very informed, can be based on data, can be based on random distributions, can incorporate uncertainty and things like that around that. The other thing that actions need to do is think about optimality. What does it mean to take a good action? In other words, the question that you're asking, and this is central to the notion of intelligence, is to say, what is intelligence? And in a business context, what is intelligence? What should you be intelligent about? Should you, for example, be intelligent about identifying customers? Should you be intelligent about anticipating competitors? Should you be intelligent about controlling costs? Should you be intelligent about identifying talent? What should you be intelligent about? And once you've identified what you can be intelligent about, you can think about what constitutes an optimal decision. Once I've identified this is what I need to be intelligent about. In other words, who are my best customers? What is my optimal set of employees? The right set of employees that give my entire talent base with the right composition. What is the optimal cost that I can accomplish based on what I need to deliver to the customer and based on what my supply chain and what my vendors are telling me? So the idea of optimization is central to the business decision process. And so any intelligence that you want to bake into it has to adapt to what you mean by optimal. And therefore, the AI solution that you built has to incorporate that kind of intelligence. So optimization is a central piece to machine learning. And a lot of AI technology today is essentially a clever combination of machine learning and optimization. The right thing is being optimized using the right data. So this is what I want you to think about a little bit, is to say, what actions are actions that I think can be improved? And by improved, I mean, you mean what? What is the intelligent statement of that improvement, and therefore what needs to be optimized? This will help frame the AI problem much clearer, not only in your head, but also in the head of your applications engineers and those who might be involved in building out the solution for you. Of course, at the end for business, what we care about is not just the action, but the outcome. What happened? What happened? I once remember early on in my career, one of my bosses gave this feedback to us when we were giving a presentation. Don't give me actions, give me outcomes. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Tell me what will happen at the end of whatever it is that you will do. Tell me the outcomes. Be they good outcomes, be they bad outcomes. What are the outcomes? What was the revenue? What were the sales? What were the profits? What were the number of customers? What were the costs? What are my interest rates? How much money am I left owing? How much money do I have in the bank? And this can be done at any level in the business. This can be done at the lowest level, at the individual manager level, at the individual contributor level, to the small business unit leader, to the vice president, to the CEO, to whoever might be involved in incorporating an outcome. Everyone has an outcome. Business is almost entirely about outcomes and their measurements. So therefore, these actions are going to lead to certain outcomes. How do we track them? Maybe through dashboards, maybe through some of the metrics. Of course, there are formal ways of tracking it in the accounting business. You have to generate balance sheets, you have to generate income statements, cash flow statements, registers, whatever it is that you need to do. That needs to be generated, and that may be digitized. That may be given to you in a nice graphic. That may be given to you in dynamic forms. And that outcome will now need to be analyzed. And here comes the part where AI becomes crucial again, which is to say, what do I do with this outcome? What is the feedback mechanism of this outcome? Where does this outcome results go in improving my business? Now, most business leaders naturally do this. They don't need any business intelligence. They don't need artificial intelligence. Human intelligence is typically good enough to take an outcome and inform it back into future action. Maybe even improve your judgment. As you do this, you realize, oh, maybe this was not that good a business to be in. Maybe there's a slightly different business I should be in. Or maybe I should go after slightly different classes of customers. Maybe I should change my entire product line. Maybe I should buy from different people. Maybe I should hire different people. So it could be tactical changes like actions. It could be strategic changes like a change in the judgment over the course of the lifetime of the business itself. So what happens is that this feedback gets incorporated into the business anyway. What role does AI play in this? Well, what AI can do and does actually quite well is it does a form of error analysis. Now, error analysis is something that statisticians also know. Statistical models are built on the idea that make the error small. And so therefore, a statistical model that is tracking error will also continuously track itself to make that error less. Am I identifying the right customers who are defaulting on my loans? Am I identifying the right customers who may be churning on my computer network? And so therefore, when I make those mistakes can be fed back into my model in order to be able to reduce its error. Classical statistical models and therefore classical BI does that. Machine learning and its descendant artificial intelligence also do that through the idea of reinforcement. And we will talk about reinforcement more as we go along. The idea of reinforcement is very clever. It essentially is the idea that says that run a computer program or run an algorithm in such a way that it tracks a performance. And if that performance is good, then give it a reward. And if that performance is not good, then give it a punishment. And track the metric that way. That every time something good happens, the metric jumps up. And every time something bad happens, the metric jumps down. And so the computer algorithm now tries to optimize, but the optimization is continually changing because it is being reinforced by the outcomes. This kind of reinforcement learning, when fed into a machine learning algorithm, gives a real sense to intelligence. And so a lot of artificial intelligence algorithms are coming into being because they are using some form of reinforcement idea. Something that says, I am getting cleverer as I go along. One of my managers, again, of years ago, would describe a neural network in the following way. It is like a child that is learning. So similarly, a child's brain, the neurons keep getting information, sensory inputs, experiences, and the neurons keep getting built up. And this mechanism is what makes the child learn and grow. Human intelligence is clever in that the child's brain physically grows. More neurons keep getting added. My daughter is 7 years old. I'm obviously older. And I have more neurons, not because I'm smarter. I think she has more human intelligence than I do, but simply because I've had more time to grow more neurons. Computers till now do not do that. But they do have a counterpart, an analogy of that, which is that their algorithms get smarter by reinforcement. So I've talked a lot. What I want you to do at this point is take a look at this picture or something similar. I'm not saying that this is a standard picture for you. This is a template for me to talk to. You have a similar workflow wherever you are, and think about where you think this intelligence, data, outcomes, AI plays a role and where you would want to focus on. Future success in AI depends on identifying where AI can be used. Think about where it can be used in your business at this point. Is it in the input? Is it in making predictions? Is it in deciding on actions? Is it on measuring outcomes? Is it on finding out what the feedback should be? Or anything like that. I hope to hear from you. Give your thoughts on this. Give your thoughts on which part of this is most exciting, which part of it you think is trivial and doesn't need any computer interventions, and we can go from there.
So there are a couple of questions that have come in,
Sure.
which are asking, how do you calculate the ROI of artificial intelligence? If you implement a solution, how do you really calculate the ROI?
Okay, so ROI, return on investment. So number one, there is an ROI method that is currently present in the business, in the runtime business as is. There's a set of investments that's made, and there's a return calculation that can be made on it. In other words, there's return on the investment, and you can do that with various kinds of calculations, risk-adjusted quantitative value, whatever it is that you want to do. So now the question becomes, what role will AI play in changing that ROI calculation? So there are two sides to this. One side, of course, is the return side, to measure that how much has been the increase in something. Let's say that you're running a marketing campaign. Now, this marketing campaign has now been designed by an algorithm that has scored people. By scored people, it means that it is said that here is your best customer, here is your second, here is your third, here is your fourth, etc. And using that, you've now identified the right customers to which to target your offerings to. And you've done that. Once you've done that, you've now seen, hopefully, and in most cases, almost certainly, a change, ideally a lift, a gain in your output. In other words, you're getting more uplift scores, more conversions, more sales, more hits, more eyeballs, however you're measuring success in your marketing campaign. So now you've got a before and after story. And you know that without using this technology, what kind of conversion rates were you getting? And afterwards, what kind of conversion rates you're getting. So you can measure that difference. This is the change, shall we say, the change in the return. And now the simplest way to do this is to say that in order to get that kind of benefit, what was the additional investment that I made? Now the additional investment that can be made is maybe a little hard to calculate because it may involve lots of things. One, investment in computing, which may come from other resources that you're also using in your company. Two, investment in software developers or in consultants, whoever you're using to develop that architecture that is going into being able to do this. So that would probably be the simplest way of doing it. Just do a before after. Now, sometimes what happens is that that's not good enough. So what is done, particularly in the example that I just said, is a specific test is run with a champion challenger kind of format. In other words, something that is not using the traditional methods and then using the new methods. Sometimes on the same population base, and you see what the difference is. And because you've done this in this controlled way that pretty much simultaneously two things are running, you can attribute that gain to the new methodology that you're using. Some businesses insist on an operation like that in order to be able to say, what is the return on investment on the AI infrastructure? The last comment I will make on this is the following, that very often AI is used to justify an investment in a digital exercise or in a digitization of a company. Certainly many companies are doing that now. In that case, it's harder to measure what the return on investment on AI itself would be, but one outcome of such a use of it is a more digitized business. So just like the web was used in order to digitize businesses earlier, AI and this kind of data-driven technologies is being used to upgrade the digital existence of a company. In which case, the outcome could be a lot more than just what the AI is giving. It could help in payroll, it could help in your web servers, it could help in your e-commerce site, it could help in your basic websites itself, it could help in your accounting, all of that. Nothing really to do with the AI, but in order to do the AI, you had to have the computing and the data transfer infrastructure. Now that you have that, there's so much else that you can do. And that becomes an interesting output. So take your time to figure this out, what it means for your business. Very tactically, using things like champion challenger tests and campaign management and attributing differences, or strategically, saying how will that overall investment play into the positioning of my business and into my long-term resources, capabilities, and profitability. That's a longer calculation. That's actually much more interesting to do.
Got it.
Good question. Thank you.
There are a couple of other questions. I'll just ask one more before we proceed further. So it seems like there are quite a few people from manufacturing background, from the manufacturing industry in our session. And they are curious to know that while AI has many applications like you talked about in the traditionally digital businesses, the IT companies, e-commerce, in manufacturing, are there enough applications? And if yes, can you give some examples?
Okay. So let me take this to let's say a manufacturing organization. I've spent some of my career in manufacturing organizations, GE being an example. And so, for example, let's say you're manufacturing the specifics of something. I'll pick an example. Let's say a wind turbine. So if you're manufacturing a wind turbine, the action that you are going to make, for example, is to say that what kind of wind turbine should I manufacture? Now, what is that going to be informed by? That is going to be informed primarily by two things. One, the energy demand, and number two, the kind of wind that is going to be present in the sites that you have. So there's one kind of analysis that is very easily influenced by AI or data side of things, which is to try and understand the energy data, to try and figure out how much will be the demand from this wind turbine site and how much therefore will need to be put up. And similarly on the wind side, to see how much wind can be generated and therefore how much energy can I get. So that will inform the nature of the wind farm that you're going to set up. Now on the manufacturing side. So if you are going to manufacture, now you're going to have to manufacture to certain specifications. So for example, let's say you're setting up a plant and you want to say that here is a wind turbine blade that I want to make. And it has to be to these kinds of specs, to these kinds of this kinds of thickness, very precise curvatures because it's got to cut through the air in a certain way. Can I make it to this kind of specification? Can I build a manufacturing floor that can do it this precisely? This would then fit into other things that you might be doing in manufacturing, such as, for example, lean. And you can set up an automated flow shop to do this. To say that, therefore, if I'm going to, let's say, build it from some kind of wood, balsa, etc., then how much should I shave it? If I'm going to weather this out of metal, then how much weathering am I going to do? How much weathering am I going to tolerate on this? And therefore, how much tempering of the metal am I going to do? So therefore, you're going to have various requirements on the material, and this can be put into a robot to say, how can I control it? Now, suppose something is going wrong. If something is going wrong and not necessarily going up to spec, let's say you've got a different lot of material. Let's say you've got a different batch of paint, and this paint is taking more layers to fit on. And so therefore, as for example, your manufacturing shop is doing this, some kind of camera, some kind of inspection device can say, your product isn't coming out very well. You need to reconfigure it. You need to reconfigure how many layers of paint you're putting on top of this. And that may be a simple reset on a robot. Whereas if you're doing this entirely manually without any feedback on the data, then the entire line will have to be shut down and reconfigured. And that's going to take you a day or a week or whatever as the case may be. So people are figuring out different ways of doing this, either from the point of view of input management or from the point of view of running a production line, and also from the point of view of, shall we say, sourcing, of buying material. What kind of quality checks can I do on this? How do I set up an experiment to say that if I inspect this and this and this part that is coming in, I gave the paint example, I cannot test every container of paint that's coming in. Which ones should I test and to what tolerances? How do I do what quality control people often talk about is gauge R&R a lot more efficiently using a lot more parameters. That's a sophisticated form of statistics, but it goes very well into AI if what it is that you're looking at, for example, is an image. So you're looking at the parts, and instead of doing some kind of breakdown analysis on it, you're taking a little picture of it, which is going to lead me to the next part of my presentation. What is this about vision and the kinds of things